Stop jumping on me. You're so violent, Yoshi.
It's so much fun.
The Gaming Lovers Podcast with Brendo and Jem. G'day and welcome to The Gaming Lovers, episode 25. I'm Jem.
I'm Brendo.
And we have had so much crazy fun this week. My goodness. My goodness. The nostalgia is real. Before we jump into that, a few different games came out this week.
Yes.
We have been devouring.
Yeah, we did the rare double day one purchase earlier this week with Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Mario Party, or Super Mario Party, both joining our gaming ranks on the same day.
Yes. And we've managed to play both of them, at least for a little bit, in between everything else that we've been doing. I don't know if it was smart of me to start Assassin's Creed Odyssey with Japan looming.
That's a monstrous map.
It's a huge game. Oh my goodness. But we'll get to that in just a second. In this episode, we are going to be talking about myths and misconceptions as far as video games go. We have this hobby that so many people misconstrue, or the media likes to blow out of proportion for, fear-mongering, things like that. So we wanted to go through different cases and misconceptions just about our favourite hobby.
Sounds great.
We're going to be defending what we love so much. But before we do that, gaming goals. How have you been going, Brendo?
Well, I've been conflicted. Earlier, last episode, I said that I didn't know what I was going to do as far as my future gaming goals, because I get indecisive when it comes to I have a limited amount of time to play games before some big event. In this case, we're going overseas for a few weeks. I don't like to leave things half done.
Yeah.
Like my sentences. I think I started about 4 sentences there before I finished one. So I was trying to find games that I could play that were in my backlog that would fit in to the remaining few days that we have. And I settled on Doom 2015, 16, whenever that Doom came out. I bought it super cheap at the start of the year and it's been sitting proudly in my backlog ever since, and I decided to finally get to it because it was the perfect length. It was only about a 13, 14-hour game, maybe even less. I'm about halfway through. I'll have enough time to complete the second half before we go, and during one of our episodes talking about reboots, remasters, remakes, we did mention Doom. I hadn't played it at that point, but I had seen clips, and I mentioned it felt like you were running on roller skates with rockets attached. And boy, is this a fast-paced game. If you stand still for 1 second, you dead.
Oh, it sounds like you've been having lots of fun with that.
Yeah, it's been quite strange because so many games these days opt for the slower, methodical, stealthy, try to eliminate this person and this person, but don't get seen. In Doom, you're literally enter a new area. It's very arcadey. Like, the area will lock down. You have to kill all the enemies in that area before you can escape. They're all trying to get you. There's things charging at you, things throwing fireballs at you, things floating above you. And you've got enemies coming from every direction, but you got to keep moving, pick up, run and gun, boom, boom, boom. I haven't played a game like that in years, and it's been great fun.
Good.
A bit gory. You probably wouldn't enjoy it. There's chainsaws involved at times. But it's been great.
Good. Anything else that you've been playing? How about Octopath Traveler?
Octopath Traveler, like I said, I don't want to leave things half done. I won't have a choice for that. The game's too darn long. I have been playing here and there, but there's no chance. No chance at all that Octopath Traveler will be complete before we go on our holiday.
Well, what about Detroit Become Human?
Well, I have been doing a bit of gaming this week, haven't I? Detroit Become Human, I've completed 3/4 of the game. We've done 3 3-hour sessions. The estimated time to beat is about 12. You do the math, it lines up.
So hopefully the internet behaves.
Yeah, well, we did have a few issues on our last session. If you were checking out my YouTube channel, you'll notice that session 3 has been broken up into 3.
No, 4 pieces.
3B, 3C, 3D, because it was repeated failures of our internet. Thank you very much, Telstra.
Yep, the NBN, like on the hour, every hour, just disconnecting on us. And we're like, Okay, time to call tech support and have a word.
But Detroit has been fantastic. I haven't even beaten it, and I believe it's my favourite David Cage game. The pressure that's been put on me for those decisions, sometimes in those games, I make decisions because I don't care. None of the options are appealing. I'll just pick this one.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, both of these are good options, so it really doesn't matter which one I pick. In this one, I feel like no matter what I do, I'm going to make a mistake. And I love it. I love that feeling of, oh boy, who knows what this is going to be like, but I choose this.
You've definitely made a few choices different from the rest of us, so I think it's been fun for us to see the paths that you've taken.
I still have the issue that there should have been not the word run, but the word abort during one particular choice, because I chose run thinking it was just a temporary escape and it was the end of the session.
Yep.
Disastrous.
Oh, well.
Disastrous.
If you get around to ever replaying it to do some trophy hunting, maybe you can do things right, get the good endings for things.
Mm-hmm. And what about your good self? What have you been playing?
So much.
So much.
So I said I would play Persona 5, and I have. I did more of that. I'm in space at the moment. Space. I went back to play Detroit Become Human, and I've done a full run through to do some trophy hunting, basically. Go down all the paths that I didn't do last time and deliberately kill off certain characters just for trophies, which was really hard. Sometimes it's like you get attached to these fictional characters and seeing them be killed off really hurts.
Now, branching storylines withstanding, a lot of those interactive narrative games are very one playthrough and you're done because you know where the plot twists go, you know what the big set pieces are. It doesn't have the same impact the second time through. But with this, you got so many different branches.
Yeah.
How have you found playing through it again?
More confident, at least in my abilities, and I think because you know where certain things are hidden, you can go through it a lot faster. And you don't freak out in certain scenes. I think the impact, the emotional impact and the stress is more powerful the first playthrough because you don't know what your choices are going to influence. And you don't know if that character is going to survive a scenario or not, and if certain dialogue choices are going to make it better or worse. So when you go through again and you've kind of seen most of it, you're a little bit more like, okay, cool. Well, I already know what's going to happen here. So it's more about just enjoying all the different paths and seeing how other scenarios play out.
Yep.
So it's been a lot of fun, and it's an easy trophy hunt too. I don't think it's as far as games go and trying to get the platinum, I think that one isn't like a hard reach to get. So, yeah, if you've got the time and you enjoy it, it's been a lot of fun for me.
So speaking of platinums,
Yeah.
news broke this week that Sony's Spider-Man game on PS4 has one of the highest platinum trophy rates of any AAA large development game at a whopping 10% of players who have started a game have ended up with the platinum. That doesn't bode well for your argument that it's a little too tough, does it? What I think that accurately reflects on is the players who start it enjoy collecting all the side stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because most of the time that is a chore. But in Spider-Man, it is
Not.
far more enjoyable. There's still story beats that you get from doing it. Don't let that reflect on the fact that you think it's too hard. Okay.
Oh, my goodness.
Sorry. Just wanted to...
This coming from the guy who also died on Friendly, thank you very much. I did not say it was a bad game. I still love it. I enjoy very much playing Spider-Man. I just got frustrated and frankly felt kind of lousy that certain fights I just could not get past a certain point where I just kept getting like the failed screen.
That's fine. Not every game clicks with you in any given time, and it's been absent in your gaming goals this week.
Yes, but I've been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey and we picked that up. I sat down and I played that for several hours the first time because I actually had time to just sit and
No,
get
let's not beat
engrossed.
around the bush. How long was your first session?
6 hours.
6 hours. Must be doing something right then.
It was good. And I think those who have played Origins will be more familiar with the concept because you've obviously got the bird mechanics that return.
Goddess.
Layla, who is like the modern day character, is returning again for this series. So there is some continuity. It's not like a complete break off from the series. It's still part of that, but they've just added a lot of RPG elements, and I think that's why I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll get on board. And playing as Cassandra has been a lot of fun.
You like her as a character?
I do. She's interesting. She's sweet, but she's still got quite an edge to her. She's had a rough life, so doesn't take crap from anybody. She's an interesting character, and they've slowly been revealing little bits of her past because you just don't know how she gets from one point of her life into where she is now, and they just drip feed it to you, and then you get that big bombshell right when the credits where it finally brings the title up of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You're like. So yeah, it's been really good, and I've really enjoyed seeing the world map with all the old names of the different countries and districts and everything from ancient Greece. Mm-hmm. And there's some that I can kind of know because the names are still similar but have only slightly changed over the centuries. Mm-hmm. So seeing Corinth on there, I'm like, hey, I don't know that. And that's one of the few that I'm like, I don't know where that is. So you can obviously tell by the shapes of some countries, you can tell where Italy is.
Oh, I'm terrible with geography.
Well, Italy looks like a boot.
If it's not Australia, I am toasted. We were trying to figure out where one of the states were in the United States, and we both thought it was in completely different areas, and it turned out, nope, that's not where.
With Portland?
Yeah, it's not where Oregon is at all. Sorry.
Yep.
And Europe, I'm even worse with. I know where.
Well, there's so many tiny countries.
I know the United Kingdom. That's about it.
Yeah. In Australia, we've got it easy. We're this big island all on our own, and it's such a unique shape too. It's very easy to find us. Although most people again forget about Tasmania. Yeah. So Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I've had lots of fun playing, and. I have no hope, I think, of finishing it or even getting halfway before we head overseas. So, yeah.
Well, it's well documented that you don't mind letting games rest for months on end. So that shouldn't be an issue for you. You might just have some slight withdrawal symptoms.
Yes.
So please do not try and assassinate anyone while we're overseas. It might cause us some issues.
I think I can control myself.
Anything else you've been playing recently?
Oh, we've been playing.
Ooh, me as well.
Yes, and a few friends. We got together to play Super Mario Party.
Super Mario Party. And yes, the bad guys have been invited this time.
Yep.
Mario has swallowed his pride and invited Bowser and his little entourage of minions, Koopa Troopa, Bowser Jr., Goomba, Pom Pom. Lots of people have arrived.
I wouldn't say that Mario invited them. I'd say they crashed the party and forced their way in this time. But it has been fun having the options of a really big, I guess, cast of characters to choose from. Mm-hmm. And there's also spaces that you can land on where you get an extra ally. So not only do you have your dice to roll throughout the game board, but you have another random character that can join you and boost your moves based on, because each character has a specific dice that they get that has extra perks or sometimes penalties.
Yeah. Mario, for example, has a more balanced one with its 6 sides have 1, 3, 3, 3, 5, 5 or something like that.
Yeah. It's
very balanced. Good chance of getting a 3, so you can sort of strategize around that, whereas someone like Bowser has
high risk, high reward.
A couple of low numbers, a couple of 10s or something, and then a few negative coins where you don't actually get to go anywhere and you just lose coins. So again, high risk, high reward, sometimes low risk, low reward, but you can plan around it. If you desperately need a high number, you can roll the dice, almost literally, and see if you can make it happen.
Yep.
Very cool.
It was just a lot of fun, though. A lot of the familiar elements from Mario Party that we grew up with had all returned, and a lot of fun and slightly frustrating mini games, especially because with the Switch controllers, obviously you've got the motion control built in. So there's a lot of mini games that use that. They're not always the easiest to control. But I think that adds to the randomness of any Mario game, is that anyone can win, and it's not always skill-based. It can just be pure luck because someone moved it just the right way and not even realizing what they're doing. So it was a lot of fun having family come together again. Felt very much like my childhood as we played together. And here is some snippets of what went down.
You're glitching. That's a bit too much. Okay.
Oh my
Oh, now this is the real thing, right?
Yes. Are you going to actually do it like that? You guys are making the couch shake. Your mum and I wants to make it. Oh, poor Boo.
What was the scores?
The crazy book method worked. Congratulations. How do you feel on your victory?
I didn't do the big one for that.
All right, let's see who won.
It will be me.
First bonus.
All right,
Ally bonus.
probably me.
Brought along the
Most allies. Oh, but I
Yeah,
used the
2-8
allies
ally.
the most.
Bonuses go to
Oh, we both got it.
That sucks.
Boo and Goomba.
Most red or bad luck spaces. I landed on bad luck ones. Oh.
It's a three-way tie. Yoshi,
Because I think
Boo,
we all
and
landed
Goomba.
on-
Goober is just gonna win because he keeps getting everything.
Uncle Bowsy misses out.
And Bowser got none.
The winner is
Gee, I wonder.
undisputed. It's the Goomba.
It is Goomba.
Do you remember when they used to like shoot them up into the air and whoever came last would like fall to the earth first?
Yeah.
He showed me the clip from Big Daddy. Do you remember Big Daddy?
Yeah.
And they play like cards with the kid, and the kid's like, "I win," and he's like, "But I had like a hand just like that, and I didn't win." What's the name of this game?
I win. It always brings out that side of things, doesn't it?
Bowser literally looked like me if I lose a game, where he's just like, yeah, okay. Alright.
Stop jumping on me. You're so violent, Yoshi.
It's so much fun.
What do you guys think of it?
Yeah, it was fun.
Does it live up to the nostalgia?
Well, it did for me because I always lose in this game and I lost again. So it felt like I was, 17 again playing it for the first time.
Just as bad.
Was there a mini game that you really liked in this new iteration?
I don't remember any of their names, so I'm not
Just describe it.
But I
Looking for
don't know yet.
Looking for love.
We like the matching one. We did that one pretty well.
What about Snapperazzi?
Was that us?
There's
The
the slapperazzi.
Yeah.
The feet. I did really
No,
bad with that one.
When we had to match the fruit pieces, because didn't we beat them?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good.
Because you won.
Yeah, of course.
Thanks for playing.
Thanks for telling me that Peach means butt. It ruined this game for me.
Text emojis, not the actual Peach character.
Yes, but now the two have merged in my mind.
Well,
Mind meld.
And that is why we're now Team Booty.
Well, I'm amazed that nobody was violently injured due to the fact that Mario Party can bring out the rage in almost anybody.
There were a few insults flying, but it kept mostly calm. Did you have a favourite minigame?
Slapperazzi was a winner for me because just the fact that everyone's frantically trying to get in the front of the camera.
And pushing each
and
other.
Not always successful. Characters are sometimes mid-action, so their eyes are sort of half shut as they're trying to punch the other character and they're right in the front of the camera shot. Fantastic.
Very funny. I loved, there's a pancake one. I can't remember what it was called, but it has this big pile of pancakes and you have to grab them and put them on your plate as quickly as possible. And I did really well at it, so I enjoyed it.
Seems nothing has changed over the 20 years since Mario Party 1 came out.
Whatever you're good at, you enjoy, right? That's how it works?
Yes.
Yeah. So, the trike one, Trike Harder, I think it's
Yes.
called, was really cute. Frustrating. I could not figure out.
It looks like
How
a
to-
10-metre race on tricycles, but it takes almost a minute because the tricycles are very tiny.
You have to kind of rotate the Joy-Con just the right way, and you can do it really quickly to move faster, but I could not figure it out, and I got beaten so badly in that one.
You were also playing as Boo, who lacks legs. May have been a factor in why he couldn't operate the tricycle.
Oh, I was at a disadvantage.
So overall, how do you think Sorry, I always say Mario Party. Super Mario Party compares to earlier editions?
Well, we haven't played all of the different boards yet. We only played the Mega Fruit Paradise, and that was really cute and fun. I think we might have jumped straight into one of the harder boards, but it was still really cool. And I think there's more to unlock. So I think I will know more of whether it lives up to previous games once everything gets unlocked, you know. They had a bit of a story mode in the original Mario Party. Like, you had to try to collect a certain amount of stars so that you could work with the bank and unlock certain other things. I don't know, some of those memories I'm like a little fuzzy now on some of the details, but I knew that like you were working towards a big goal and you had to do that as a team, like to try to get there, and it took a while for us to get those things. So I'm not sure as far as this iteration goes if there's much of that, or if it just feels more like just pick a thing and enjoy the game.
No, there's 4 characters to unlock and there's an extra board to unlock, but there are also different multiplayer modes. There is one where you pair up in teams and you strategically try to move across a board, and that makes it a lot more mental instead of just random. And there's also the cooperative game where you're on the river raft, which we will be trying out later today. Test our marriage.
And then they've also got a special area for those who, like, if you've got a friend that has a Switch as well, where you can play specially designed games where you literally have, like, the Switches, like, side by side and they move over the screens together. So I don't know if we really have many friends that we know of that we could do.
None that I'd want to play Mario Party with, that's for sure.
So we might not ever get to play those ones, unfortunately. They do have an online mode where you can play mini games with everyone around the world, but obviously you have to have the Nintendo subscription for that, which costs money. So if that's something that you want to do, if you want to play mini games with people around the world, then there is that option as well. If you
No thanks.
Hey, well, not everyone has our group of people to call at a moment's notice and be like, hey, come play Mario Party.
Well, considering the mini games themselves sometimes last as short as 15 seconds, I'm sure every millisecond counts. It's not something I'd want to try and play with any lag at all.
Oh my goodness, yes, you'd want really good internet. So it should be interesting to see how well that does. I'm thinking as they start adding more games, especially when Smash Brothers come out, I think a lot of people are going to want to be playing that online against other people. So I think that's going to be a true test of whether Nintendo's online services stack up.
Yeah, we'll have to see how it holds up on a technical and mechanical level.
So I think that's everything as far as games that we've played.
I think so.
We'll get into what we're going to try to squeeze in right before we go to Japan this week. At the end of this episode, right now though, it is time for the main topic. Share the love. Follow us on Twitter at Brendo Jem. That's BRENDOJEM. This past weekend, we were at the WWA Super Showdown.
I'm amazed I still have a voice.
I know, right? It was a little croaky, but not too bad, actually, after all the chanting and singing The Horses by Daryl Braithwaite.
Yeah, wrestling fans get weird sometimes.
We do. We really do. But wrestling obviously has kind of a stigma that comes along with it. You know, it's got a reputation for those who aren't wrestling fans, people automatically kind of dismiss it. They say it's fake, they say it's cheesy, they kind of think that only idiots enjoy it. And too often, I think we're trying to defend our hobbies, whether it is wrestling or whether it is video games, because it comes under fire from so many different sources and oftentimes completely baseless. It's, rumors that get out of hand, people that want to cast blame on a game rather than on the people that maybe have done some pretty horrendous and horrific things. So we wanted to go through all the myths and misconceptions as far as gaming is concerned and, defend our hobby that we love.
Yeah, having been a gamer for decades at this point in my life, I'm old. No, not quite. Just, I was around. I was around when the gaming scene was relatively fresh, and there's no shortage of times where video games have got a bad rap. Now, some of that is rightfully allocated. Games like Postal, for example, come to mind, where it was just senseless violence with no real gratifying reason for it.
Yeah.
But there have also been many, many occasions where video games have been given a bad rap for absolutely no reason. No fault of their own, completely baseless accusations. So it is hard to know sometimes when a news article breaks about a controversial factor or feature in a game, whether or not it's true.
Is it fake news?
Everything's fake news these days, it seems.
It's hard to know. And that's the thing. You need to really know if you can trust a news source. And oftentimes, a lot of mainstream media, frankly, don't get video games. They don't specialize in reviewing in it. So if you want to know the truth about a game, look to journalists that specialize in the industry, because they'll be more honest about the content of something and whether it is having an effect socially, etc., etc. More often than not, mainstream media will jump on an issue more to hype fear, because fear, unfortunately, is what sells news. From someone who's worked in the media and being told by a program director to use that as a way to get more listeners. I'm not even kidding, like literally sat down and told to think of ways to freak people out so that they'll want to keep listening. I'm like, people, they deliberately do it. And it's kind of an unfortunate truth about the world that we live in, that's how the media works. And so we want to kind of like defend games. Like, obviously there are some games that definitely cross the line, but there are plenty of games that don't, or, you can't necessarily say that they, cause someone to become a serial killer, which is a really frustrating myth that rears its ugly head so often, even in this day and age when it's been disproven.
Well, unfortunately, there are cases where some games are violent. That's just a fact. But a lot of the time, games do get an unfair criticism, I guess. People exclusively target one very specific factor in a larger scale of the entirety of the game. And it's hard to know where their opinions are based on, whether it is the entire thing or if it is just a specific thing. You need to do your research on that matter.
One of the most common misconceptions that is so perpetuated today is that video games make you violent.
How dare you? Come here so I can slap you with such a silly statement.
Oftentimes we'll see a lot of gamers share memes saying, video games don't make me violent. Real life makes me want to be violent in video games as an outlet for frustration with society, which I think we can agree with. That life in general makes us frustrated, and so it's good to have an outlet where we can just have fun and be silly in a digital world. But there's one, I think, pivotal moment that a lot of people point to that argue that video games make you violent. Doom, unfortunately, was basically accused of creating two mass murderers back with the Columbine High School massacre, which was just, a huge tragedy. And unfortunately, they linked the deaths of all those people to those video games because these two teenage boys loved playing Doom. They loved playing Quake, Duke Nukem, Wolfenstein. And so the families of the victims tried to sue the video game studios like Sony, Activision, ID Software, which I think is the one that created Doom, thinking that the developers should have known that their violent games would lead to this massacre, that they were encouraging and creating murderers.
There's no shortage of violence in media. I mean, everything from Terminator to RoboCop to Predator. I don't know, I'm just throwing examples out there, but, there's a lot of violent movies. And you watch anything on Netflix these days, even things like Daredevil and things like that, they have that violent edge to them. It's just something that people enjoy watching. I don't know, it's that...
It's a genre, it's a form of entertainment, absolutely. And, some people enjoy watching the gorier aspects more than others. Like, I can't handle a lot of gore myself. So I like action movies, but I don't like it when it gets a little too bloody. Whereas you can handle that a lot better than I can.
But even without the bloodiness, you've got, a James Bond movie, for example, where it's actions, there's bad guys, there's gunfights, there's, chase scenes. It's action. People love that action.
Absolutely.
Video games get the worse end of the argument because they are interactive.
Yeah.
You're the one pushing the button to shoot the gun at monsters or enemy soldiers or whatever. So, of course, that gets the link that, you're training people to be violent. You're training people to shoot guns. Now, there have been no shortage of studies in psychological realms and people tracking brainwave patterns and things like that, trying to see if there is in fact a link between playing violent video games or any other sort of violent outburst in entertainment and actual violent psychopathic behaviour in real life. And all these years later, I mean, Doom came out in 92 or something, and there's still never actually been a successful study that has proven that video games with violence make you violent.
Yeah. There was a long-term study, this is back in 2005, where they had a group of people play about 56 hours of Ashen's Call 2, which was an MMORPG. And the researchers found no strong effects associated with aggression caused by a violent video game. Apparently, compared with the control group, the players didn't increase with their, argumentative behaviours after gameplay. So they weren't getting more aggro or more likely to, get into a debate or aggressive towards anyone after playing and being exposed to that game for so many hours. So there's been so many studies that have basically debunked this myth and this misconception that video games make you violent. And yet still to this day, people will still say or perpetuate it and spread it, whether it's in the media or social media as well, because it's so easy to jump on the bandwagon of dismissing something, because if you don't like it or you don't understand it, it's easy to just go, I'm right and I don't care.
Yeah, the majority of the people who do commit violence in public settings, like that example, they have underlying issues that aren't being addressed chemically, mentally, socially. And you think of the millions and millions of people who play video games worldwide. Now, if video games did make you violent, would not the streets be breaking out in brawls non-stop? Would road rage incidents make every day on your commute to work chaos because everyone's just driving into each other? Yeah. Things like that. Based off the statistics alone, you can't make a valid argument that video games and their violence make you violent.
Yeah. Well, I think we've debunked that one.
Debunk.
Dunk.
Now, like I said, I grew up playing games in the 90s, Super Nintendo, Mega Drive. When Mortal Kombat dropped, the Super Nintendo version had no blood. When you hit an enemy, when you hit the opposition, sweat came out. Giant grey globs of sweat.
Ew.
Now, the Sega version had blood. And therefore, can you guess which one sold better?
The blood.
Presumably. I haven't actually checked that fact. But it was a point of pride for the Sega team because back then the battle lines were drawn. But you think of that amount of blood. You give someone an uppercut in a fighting game and 3 drops of blood fly out and hit the ground. That caused news headlines at the time. That amount of blood.
Yeah.
The fact that you could then finish them with fatalities, but they'd be perfectly fine to select in the next round anyway, so the character somehow survives. Otherwise, you'd have a very small roster on Mortal Kombat games these days, wouldn't you? Yes. But that caused no end of complaints from parents groups and things like that. And the way of the world, the way it goes, things get progressively worse in entertainment, society, and things. So comparing that Mortal Kombat to how Mortal Kombat games are now, they're rated R for extreme violence. You punch someone, you do a finishing move, it shows an X-ray inside, which shows their organs bursting. That's not my form of entertainment. So even as a gamer that has relatively loose standards on the violence and the things like that, I understand it's all fantasy. I understand it's not real life. And I would not be walking up to people at my workplace throwing punches, as tempting as it can be sometimes, with the general public. I understand completely that it's loose, that it's not real, that there's that difference. And I've been playing violent video games, 2.5 decades, we'll say, 25 years. And would you say I'm a violent person?
No.
Perfect. That's just the answer I wanted you to say.
But in all honesty, you are one of the most calm, level-headed people. If we are ever in a moment of confrontation, started arguing with someone, you are the one that's calm and rational and will use logic to diffuse the situation. I'm the one that gets heated. But that's more personality based. That has nothing to do with, media content that we consume.
Yeah.
So,
and ultimately with any form of entertainment, it's up to you to decide what's right for you.
Yeah.
I don't like playing those Mortal Kombat games or the Sniper Elite games that I consider excessively violent. They're not for me. I don't want to see an eyeball pop out of a head that's been shot by a sniper rifle. Things like that. That's just not my cup of tea. And like I said, it's up to you, or if you're not old enough, your parents to actively enforce age-appropriate ratings.
Absolutely.
Any form of entertainment that your children are consuming, you should be aware of the content of that.
Absolutely.
And if you buy your 14-year-old Grand Theft Auto 5, which is rated R18+, and then complain because they're swearing and they're showing violent tendencies, it's outside of the rating bracket. You've allowed them access to something that's not acceptable for their mental state at that point in time. Brain development's a weird thing, and with this world, everything's instant, everything's available at your fingertips.
Yeah.
You have unlimited access to things. Back in my day, if I wanted to watch a violent movie, I had to try to convince the video store clerk that I could hire an MA15+ movie because I was 15 and I looked about 12. Wasn't easy for me at the time.
No. You would have had trouble even in your 20s.
Oh, I had a lot of trouble. I was a late bloomer.
Yeah, it wasn't until the beard kicked in that people then
and
started...
the hair fell out on top. Now I look about 45.
It flipped. Sorry, love. Yeah. But yeah, I would definitely back up that point that I think a lot of parents especially, there's a huge responsibility to know what your kids are playing. And I know you can't always be there monitoring everything that they're doing or consuming because who has the time? But there are avenues that you can take. And one site that we use to double check things, whether it be movies, TV shows, books, video games, if we're unsure, not just for us, but if we've got friends that are younger that we're not sure if it's going to be appropriate for them, we will go to commonsensemedia.org and see what general kind of stuff, it gives ratings for how much swearing there is, if there are excessive drug references, how much violence, if there are a lot of sex scenes, things like that. It breaks it down into categories for you so you really know, without too much spoilers, what kind of content's in it and if it's appropriate for the age that you might be allowing to watch or play that media. So it's good to do just a little bit of homework and make sure that it's safe, because especially for younger kids with their brain development, like being exposed to certain things can change the chemistry in their brains while they're still young. And, you know, it's like wiring them incorrectly. Like if I hate using this analogy like a robot, but like, you know, putting too many volts into an area that's not supposed to have that in it, and then it doesn't quite function the way it's supposed to because it wasn't, you know, allowed to develop the way that it is designed to.
You're
Does that make
struggling
sense?
to finish that sentence. With
I was. I'm like trying to pick my words very carefully because this is a sensitive topic.
Yeah, Common Sense Media does have movie reviews, TV show reviews, video games, books even, and they do get the opinions of children and adults to say what sort of age should be watching this.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, you've got your overall ratings board ratings as well that give you an accurate restriction.
Yes.
But it's also handy if some things slip through the rating process and you're like, that shouldn't be a M-rated movie. That should be a bit higher than that.
Yeah.
Things like that. But it also helps.
Yeah. And the Australian classification board is usually pretty stringent. Like a lot of games get banned and don't actually make it to Australia.
More so when we didn't have an R rating for games.
Yes.
If anything was above the 15 level, it was
Just cut.
in danger of being
Or had to be
axed.
edited, you know, heavily for it to make classification here. That said, sometimes because before we had the R rating, sometimes things that should have been R were allowed in anyway. So it's one of those annoying things that sometimes things that should be for 18-year-olds are allowed for 15-year-olds here in Australia.
It was strange seeing things like Silent Hill Homecoming, and you see on the disc, because Australia's in the European region, and you see all these different nationality logos of their rating things on the actual disc itself. And it says, you know, German 18, London 18, Paris 18, Australia 15, because it wasn't bad enough to get banned, but they're like, if there was an 18, it would be that. But we don't have that. It's not bad enough to get banned.
Yes.
We'll make it an MA 15 plus game.
And I feel like the classification board now is almost too scared to use the R rating, even though they have it. They don't want to use it, and it's kind of frustrating. It's like, no, please use it, because it helps, I think, parents when they're shopping with their kids, if they're not sure about these games that the kids are begging for, especially this time of year with all these new releases.
It should be the first line of warning
Exactly.
against, is this acceptable?
Exactly. And it also makes it harder for underage teens to buy it themselves when, you know, they're alone with their friends. And maybe going into JB Hi-Fi, if it's got an R rating, it means that they're going to have to show ID. So all those things are there to protect from that kind of content. I think we've sidetracked a little bit as far as
Yeah, we
as
have a
topic
bit.
goes.
But it is frustrating having been a gamer for so long and loving the industry. And it does get a bad rap from everyone because of parents who think, oh, it's just games. It doesn't matter if I let them play an R18 game. It's just a video game.
Yeah. They're
It's-
thinking that everything's still Pac-Man, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
and that's not
no
true.
it's no better than going, oh, it's just cigarettes. I'll just buy them cigarettes. It's fine because they're for 18 plus. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's just video games. It's annoying.
It is. Another aspect, I think, is in Misconceptions and Myths, just blatant lies that people make up, I guess, when a new game comes out, and rumors get spiraling out of control. One of my favourite games fell victim to that before it launched, which was Mass Effect.
Well, let's not forget, before everything was available on the internet at our fingertips, we relied on video game magazines to
Yes.
get our video game information. That was pretty much it. You didn't have video game TV shows, YouTube channels, things like that.
Yeah.
So the only time everyone could hear about a video game was the negative that was being reported on the local news.
Yes. Thanks, Fox News. Gee, it's not that surprising, really, that these are the guys that are the ones that did this. But anyway,
We're not talking politics.
sorry, they've just got a rep. So it started off with an American blogger first that falsely accused Mass Effect of including rape and sodomy in the game. completely not true, but Fox News jumped on this blogger's article and then created this whole story saying that it included full graphic sex within the game that you could play and control. Again, so not true. It has a cutscene that you can watch if you choose to romance one of 3 characters in the game, and the most you might see is like side boob, so nothing worse than you see on the red carpet these days, right? And I think I remember them also going on about alien sex, and how it was very perverse. But it's really just, very, I guess, almost Star Wars issues. You've got Liara, who is,
Basically a blue human.
Yeah, she's a blue human, essentially. So there's really nothing odd, I guess. But again, it's things that get blown out of proportion for the sake of hyping and fear-mongering, especially. And so many, really hardcore Christian groups jumped on it thinking that, it was promoting all of this perverse things when it's such a tiny aspect, an optional aspect of the game.
Things are just taken out of context and blown out of proportion.
For sure.
Full graphic. No. You'd see worse on an M-rated, like a PG almost. Intimate scene.
Absolutely. And then you weren't controlling the characters in the scene. It was a cut scene too. So I think when they hear video game and sex scene, they think that is something that you're playing and controlling and doing.
You're only bringing this up because it's Mass Effect, aren't you?
Well, it was falsely accused of it. Look, there have been other games that have included things like that, especially there are games that include where you can control the character that have rightly been, dragged over the coals for that. But to falsely accuse a game of something annoys me. Especially a game as good as Mass Effect. Another game that was kind of under the microscope was when Tomb Raider got rebooted.
Yes, I remember this one.
Yeah, executive producer Ron Rosenberg stated that there would be one scene in the game with Lara Croft about to be sexually assaulted by a scavenger, and she would be forced to fight back and kill him in return. So he had stated that, and everyone, obviously believed him because he's the exec producer. Yeah,
producers not usually too involved in the direction of a game, and probably misinterpreted what the director most likely was implying with the scene. There is a tense scene as far as that Tomb Raider reboot is like Lara's origin story. She's not the hardened soldier basically that she is nowadays.
Yeah.
She was still just an explorer and had never taken a life. And the situation does get tense and she is restrained, but it's not to sexually assault her.
No, it was her life was at stake.
Yes.
And so it was either kill or be killed kind of a moment. But I think given the way that the scuffle goes down, it can be misinterpreted as attempted rape. And that's where a lot of controversy came out. And so the studio manager, Daryl Gallagher, had to come out and, clear up the air a little bit and say that's actually not what it is. It is more, we wanted to show her having to kill another human for the very first time. And then they go on to state that, sexual assault of any kind is categorically not a theme in this game. Yeah. So it really had to hit home that it's not in the game at all.
So again, something that somebody interprets and reports as accurate, 100% accurate.
Yes.
Not 100% accurate at all.
That's what's so tricky. I think people hear what they want to hear sometimes and then blow it out of proportion, and it's hard to recover. Trying to backpedal and really clear the air as far as miscommunications goes can be such a nightmare.
You're listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. Want to join the conversation? Visit thegaminglovers.com. Record your comment or question by clicking on the button on the right-hand side, and you could be featured in the next podcast.
Well, it's not all grim violence and blood and gore and assault and meanness. Sometimes meanness. Hey, there's a line in the meanness scale that you should just not cross. But it's not all just violence that gets video games a bad rap when things are directly singled out and targeted, a simple little line of dialogue can be all it takes in jest.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Portal 2, of all games, is the one that came under fire from CBS. Must have been a slow news day. Basically, one line of dialogue from Wheatley to
Good old Wheatley. Wheatley is an AI who is trying to eliminate you.
Yes.
Now, the first game has an AI that is ruthless and calculating and cold.
She
and
says some pretty nasty things to you too.
enjoy taking out your life force from your body.
Mm.
Now, the sequel, Wheatley is the one in charge of the facility, and how would you describe him?
It's like a bumbling idiot.
He is not capable. He's
Yeah.
not cold and calculating, but he feels like he wants the power, and
It goes to his head.
he doesn't quite succeed at being as intimidating as he's
Gladys,
attempting
yeah.
to be. So he throws half-hearted insults that he's trying to make up on the fly, which don't quite work.
Mm-hmm.
And one such line, would you like to repeat it for us?
Fatty, fatty, no parents. Now, obviously, the character that he plays as Shell is an orphan.
Presumably.
And one of the reasons that she was chosen for these experiments, like if she dies, then no one cares kind of aspects. And Wheatley is using everything to try and insult. And there are many insults throughout these games, and that's half the fun, really, is the hilarious one-liners, both from Wheatley and from Gladys in the course of these games. But some reporters at CBS News took this particular line to be abhorrently offensive, to the point where they said that this game is just far too offensive for adoptive kids.
Yes, particularly overweight ones. Fatty, fatty, no parents.
Look, obviously, we have a dear friend who is adopted,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think she would find that to be offensive.
Well, I'll call her that next time I see her, and we'll see how it goes down. But it's again, context is king.
Absolutely.
Right? It's a foolish robot that is attempting to insult you, and he's running out of options, and so he throws that out. And it lands as a comedy line. It's not supposed to be taken seriously.
No.
It's not supposed to be offensive.
No.
It's not even supposed to be negative in context. So it's just, it is what it is in the game.
Yeah. And
I've been called far worse things in video games.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. And I don't think the game designers ever wanted people to take that line specifically as a dig at adopted kids. I don't think that was ever their intention. It was just Wheatley doing everything he can to undermine Shell as she's trying to escape the facility. And it's unfortunate that people, reporters especially, will take something and blow it out of proportion for the sake or for the illusion of news.
Alright, so that last test was seriously disappointing. Apparently being civil isn't motivating you, so let's try her way, alright? Fatty, adopted fatty, fatty, no parents. What?
What exactly is wrong with being adopted?
What's wrong with being adopted? Lack of parents.
For the record, you're adopted and that's terrible.
And also,
Doesn't work with me.
nothing. But, some of my best friends actually are orphans. But
Look at her. She's not fat.
I am not a moron! Just do the test.
Well, there you go. See? Oh my goodness, you add the context. And Gladys is coming to the defense of Shell.
Yeah,
I forgot
so-
that, to be honest.
With no context, sure, calling someone fatty, no
No
parents
parents.
is a bit mean.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that the game then immediately defends the fact that there's nothing wrong with being an orphan,
Mm-hmm. Or adopted.
and some of Wheatley's best friends are orphans.
Yes,
So there
and
you
he
go.
himself is one.
There you go.
So
See?
when you add context, it's fine. So news reporters, oh my goodness, get your act together, people.
Oh boy, this is a frustrating topic.
It is, isn't it?
Let's pick something
purge it all out.
childish. Go.
Oh, because Portal wasn't childish enough.
Well, look, we're going away from the ultra violence. We've gone to the silliness of Portal.
Yes.
What about Pokemon?
Oh, man.
Because I know there's been some controversy about Pokemon back when it launched.
Well, considering it's been around for a couple of decades, there's been controversy over the years over various things for many different reasons, and most of them stupid. So let's think.
For those who don't know Pokemon, the three of you out there on the globe that may not know what Pokemon is, you explore a world, there's these creatures, you can battle them and recruit them to your team, and then you have your team of Pokemon that you then go and attempt to work your way through the ranks of the leagues.
Yes.
Okay? Now, they are stored in little Pokeballs, which are just little red and white fist-sized balls, and they are released from that, and through that act, it is satanic summoning of spirits, apparently.
Apparently.
That was a big one when it launched.
Yes.
Summoning creatures from the nether realms. No, not quite. It's a digital creature that pops out.
Exactly. Oh, and then I find this one particularly funny. PETA, who are
Peter.
the group, the activists, defending animal rights. It took them a while to catch on to Pokemon and realize, capturing animals, keeping them enclosed in little Pokeballs, and then having them fight each other, sometimes to the death, especially if you're doing a Nuzlocke run.
We'll discuss that another day.
We'll save that for a special episode, I think. Anyway, it took them, I think, close to 15 years Pokemon had been around in games, in TV shows, in movies. And then someone must have had to point it out to them that...
The intern was probably playing Pokemon on his Game Boy.
And then they come out and condemn them and say that this game is evil.
Capturing animals, forcing them to fight each other. Boy, did I ever make a mistake when I thought because I'd played Pokemon, I should go and recruit the local dog, the stray dog that comes around our neighbourhood. Go
Start
and get
a fighting ring.
Possum as well, just to get a bit of variety in my team. And then I decided to travel overseas to recruit a bear, and then that was where I made my mistake. Capturing a bear for my fighting
Your possum
team.
didn't help you fight the bear?
No, not quite. It got eaten. That's violence against animals if ever I've heard it.
Oh, man. Look, we know that PETA mean well, but it's kind of amusing, especially because it took them so long to figure it out.
This isn't an actual sporting league or something that people are doing.
Yes,
It's a digital
obviously.
game with digital creatures in a
Yes.
digital world with digital rules.
And much like with violent video games, Pokemon has not turned us into people who want to create illegal dogfighting rings or things like that.
Yeah.
Pokemon doesn't encourage or I think endorse animal cruelty. Quite the opposite. You look at the story of Pokemon, especially with Ash and Pikachu, and it is a great show of friendship and this close bond between, human and their Pokemon.
If those Pokemon are ever in trouble, who's the first person to sacrifice his own well-being to save them?
Ash.
Ash Ketchum, you legend.
And some of the, especially with the anime, some of the most heartbreaking episodes are ones where he's choosing the well-being of his Pokemon over his own personal gain when he sets Butterfree free so he can go join all the other Butterfrees. It was really sad. When he lets Charizard go. Charizard, which is his powerhouse Pokemon, he lets him leave so he can go be with other Charizards. There are so many moments that are just beautiful and made me cry. And, so to suggest that it promotes that kind of cruelty, I think is so unfair and taking, a pot shot at something that's just not true. That's not what the game or the anime endorses at all. So again, looking at something and twisting it into something that it's not.
Now, unfortunately, that's not where the Pokemon issues end. When Pokemon Go became a worldwide phenomenon, downloads records being broken left, right, and centre, everyone was spending time looking at their phones trying to track their latest catch so they could use it in their illegal gambling rings, no doubt. Those scoundrels. But unfortunately, people were going out of their usual walking paths and into darker, more dangerous neighbourhoods And through no fault of the game's own, people were using that to perpetrate crimes.
Yes. It was making news worldwide. There were so many robberies linked to this, muggings, assaults, you name it. Unfortunately, people were using something that was made for good and for fun and turned it into a tool for a lot of evil acts. And so the game copped a lot of flack, for something that, it wasn't endorsing that, it wasn't encouraging it. It was, this innocent tool being used in, all these crimes, unfortunately. Another aspect that was reported on repeatedly and that we had happen close to Mel and Steve's house, our dear friends Mel and Steve, there are a lot of people who were playing Pokemon Go while driving.
Dangerous.
Very dangerous. And obviously the developers have taken steps to stop people from being able to play while they're going at certain speeds so that you can only play really while walking for safety reasons after all of these car crashes that happened with people playing Pokemon Go. And this happened literally outside Mel and Steve's house. There's a roundabout or driving circle.
Traffic circle.
Traffic circle. There's so many different names for them. And some teenager was playing Pokemon Go and then hit one of the light poles right at that roundabout, and so the car was left there for a bit, and a damaged post for a while
As a memorial
yes.
to his lost Metapod. Now, in this situation, a game was created that you use augmented reality. You're actually walking in the real world.
Yeah.
Turning your camera around, and oh, look, there's a Pokemon in that park.
Mm-hmm.
It gets you out, it gets you fit, it gets you active, it gets you exploring, gets you with your friends.
Mm-hmm. It got people out and exercising. There was a lot of good things to be said about Pokemon Go.
But some stupid people
Yeah.
attempting to play the game while driving. It's you get told off if you're texting while driving. This is more involved.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why stupid people made stupid decisions. And what copped the blame? The
Pokemon
game.
Go. Mm-hmm.
Pokemon Go got the blame, and they had to redefine some of the restrictions on the actual game itself.
Absolutely. And also you had people trespassing on private property to try to get to either special Pokemon, like rare Pokemon that dropped, or to get to different centers so they could collect free goodies and things like that. And, full-on businesses started protesting this game because of the influx of people
Loitering around their premises.
Yes.
As a train driver, I saw one or two people very close to train tracks where there's no pedestrian access, no roads nearby, and yet they're there with their phones in their hands walking a few metres from train tracks.
Mm-hmm. So dangerous.
In the midst of the Pokemon Go phenomenon.
Yeah. So, again, it boils down to, I guess, our choices as human beings. And as fun as it is, but to play these games, we should never let it cause us to make stupid and dangerous decisions. And unfortunately, there is that risk that there are those who would take advantage of people playing the game to use their distractedness to then attack them, unfortunately. I'm hoping that when Pokemon Let's Go comes out and, the joint effort with that game and basically giving a resurgence to Pokemon Go isn't going to trigger a lot of this all over again.
Yeah.
I'm hoping people have learnt their lesson and will be cautious as they're playing and are more aware of their surroundings and play safer,
We will see.
Yeah.
We will see.
Share the love. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Gaming Lovers.
Now, one thing that we can say is unequivocally factually accurate is that all video gamers are the losers, the loners, the dregs of society that live, in their mother's basements. Is that accurate? Is that what we've been cast as?
That is definitely the stereotype that gets linked with us, and I think we see that too often in cartoons and other forms of media that are not video games. And look, that might represent a small percentage of gamers. I'm not going to say that that's not us, because there are definitely some that struggle with the more social aspects of life and will happily stay in a digital world. But the majority of gamers are functioning adults. And it's not even mostly kids. You know, a lot of us, because we grew up in the 80s and 90s with a lot of video games, the statistically speaking, gamers are around the age between 25 to 45. Those are the main gamers.
It's always progressively working its way up. It
because
has
we
been
keep
for
aging.
decades, and the average age of video gamers keeps climbing.
Exactly. Most of these gamers are people with families, with steady jobs, and have a lot of disposable income to put towards gaming. So the stereotype and the myth that is so often perpetuated about gamers being, you know, very antisocial, sticky, big guys. Well, you know, with all the food and, you know, haven't showered in a while. They look very unwashed in all of the like movies and TV shows and things that you see that in.
Yeah.
So that's so not true. Look, occasionally we might get sucked into a world like when a big game like, say, Assassin's Creed Odyssey launches and we don't want to stop playing for 24 hours and then we get a little gross. But that happens occasionally. That's not, you know,
Oh, come on.
the
You
norm.
did that with Gilmore Girls marathons well before video games entered your life.
That's
Who are
true.
we kidding?
When a whole season would drop, finally we'd get it from the States, like the box set of a season that we hadn't seen. My sister and I would binge watch that within a day and not sleep. So I think that isn't limited to gamers. But that said too, like, it's kind of sad that so many people buy into that myth that gamers are antisocial, that gamers can't function in society and aren't, you know, just regular people.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of irritates me.
Yeah, I've got lots of friends that I've only made friends because of video games, whether you play online with them or not. But you know, that's still the foundation of a lot of my friendships.
Thanks to online gaming, I'd say gamers are actually very social. You know, it might not be face-to-face interactions all the time, but they're still interacting with friends, and sometimes on a global level that they've got friends all over the world.
Yeah, one of the most frustrating things about my job is the irregular hours. So I can't always get out and go to see my friends face to face. But if I play a quick, you know, hour or two online with the Falcon, you know, with our headsets on, when he's brain dead from his shifts, I'm brain dead from my shifts, but we can still make the effort to connect, catch up, have fun, keep that friendship.
Yep. I remember reading an article a year or two ago during the voiceover strikes in LA. They were trying to negotiate better wages and conditions to protect the voices, especially in video game industry where, you know, a lot of the rules hadn't changed to protect their voices and things like that. And there was a reporter who wrote a lot of stupid things on this issue, who clearly didn't understand or doesn't understand the gaming industry or culture, who said quite blatantly, like, who cares about video games? All gamers are virgins who, you know, don't function in society, and blatantly said that in this article, and then got devoured by, you know, thousands of fans and gamers alike on social media for being an idiot. But things like that stick with me, is that, again, in the media, you've got idiots perpetuating these myths because they buy into it and because maybe they don't have that hobby, and then they bag on it because they don't like it. They think it's stupid. And that happens so often, especially for us, because we've got a lot of, I guess, niche hobbies.
Yeah, we like anime, professional wrestling, and video games. We are doomed to forever live this life of being misunderstood.
Absolutely. And it's so exhausting trying to defend our hobbies and be like, but you don't understand it. But it's so true. And look, on the other side of the fence, like, there's a lot of sports that I think are kind of boring. But I wouldn't insult my friends that do like it by saying that, you know, it's stupid or a waste of time. Just because I don't see the value in it or I don't want to spend my time doing it doesn't mean I'm going to call them idiots for liking it. So it would be lovely if those who are, you know, maybe not big fans of gamers or gaming would show the courtesy back the other way.
You can hear the strain in your voice. This is the exact example of how we use video games to prevent us from being violent in real life because of the frustrations of stupid people on this earth.
It's so true, though. There is something cathartic about playing those games and doing things that I would never do in real life. Maybe that's why I love playing, like, as a renegade Commander Shepard in Mass Effect and, like, punching idiots. You get to do that. Whereas in real life, I would be in so much trouble for that. So I don't do that. I try my best to be, a good, courteous, well-behaved human being. And, there are times when it is just refreshing to play a game where I can be a total dirtbag and enjoy the scenarios that play out because of that. But, I know how to keep those things separated.
Yes, 100%.
Mm-hmm. Another misconception and myth that gets blown out of proportion, or a stereotype, I guess, is that video games are for boys or men.
Well,
Boy
they
men.
are. I managed to snag one of the few video gaming women as my wife, and I'm very proud of that because I'm sure that a gaming girl is in short supply.
Oh, we're unicorns, apparently. Well, that is the myth. Much like diamonds, we're not as rare as you think. Aha! It's just a controlled market.
A controlled market of video gaming women. You've made that sound so strange.
I know.
You bet you regret that choice of words.
Let me explain. So for diamonds, a lot of people think that the reason they're so expensive is because they're rare, which is just not true. They're actually one of the most common gems in the world, but they are deliberately controlled by those who own those mines, and they drip feed them, and that's where they can mark up the price because they control how much goes out into the world at a given time.
So who's controlling how many video game girls are out there? Because I'm still so confused with this.
I'm just saying that the perception is that diamonds are rare and that's why
gotcha.
they're worth, and that's not true. And the same goes that people think that gamer girls are rare and that girls that like video games are rare and must be tomboys, when that's just not true.
And diamonds are a girl's best friend. So
Thanks,
that's
Marilyn Monroe.
Just helping it all tie together with a nice little bow.
But look, for years, especially you look at arcade games, they've always been very unisex. There was never any kind of like gender twist on it. And it was only really until like the late 80s, mid 90s that those marketing video games deliberately targeted boys for their games in ads. And then they would market other products towards girls, especially around Christmas time. So this is all the advertisers' fault, where people started believing that advertising is, so this is for boys, so then girls, I won't buy this for girls. And then it's so entrenched now in people's minds that I've had people that I've met, when they found out that I love video games, they look at me and they're like,
what?
Like, you like games, but you're a girl. And it's just so like, I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like, I grew up with all this stuff just like they did, and I enjoy a lot of these games. I don't enjoy all of the games, but I still enjoy so many of these games too. Like, why should my gender affect the fact that I like games? It seems so silly to me. Like, it's not logical at all. And the fact of the matter is, it's kind of split almost 50-50 as far as the majority. Like, it's not even like heavily skewed that the majority of gamers are boys, because not even that's true.
Nope. Not true at all.
Yeah. So it's just a frustrating myth that is so perpetuated. I've even had, I remember meeting this guy who was like this big radio head at like this meeting back when I worked in radio. And when I was being introduced to them, my manager was like, oh yeah, she really loves wrestling. She loves playing video games. So he looks at me and he's like, oh, so you're basically a bloke. And I nearly punched the guy. I was so mad.
That's the violent video games that made you want to do that.
No, it was the idiot that made me want to do that. And I was just like, are you kidding me? So the fact that people like buy into that, even though statistics have shown time and time again that it's not true, it's just one of those annoying misconceptions and myths that I hope will go away, but I don't know if it will.
Yeah, well, as long as we're here to correct course of this human race on this podcast, you can thank us if it successfully gets straightened out.
But the good news is, at least, guys, that finding your dream gamer girl isn't, a far-off dream. It isn't some, unreachable thing. There are more of us than you think.
They're everywhere.
Yes. If you get out of those basements, you can find them.
Oh my
Isn't
gosh,
that
this
the
is just
story?
one on top of the other now, isn't it? There was also a feature on a current affairs program here in Australia quite recently about the insidious scourge that is Fortnite.
And how it's triggering addiction in all our tweens.
Now, look, their key example they used in this article was a teenager who had a TV at the foot of their bed. They refused to go to school because they enjoyed Fortnite so much. They were failing their grades. They were addicted to Fortnite.
Yes.
Now, growing up in high school, I didn't have a TV in my room for many years. Many years. And when I finally got one for my birthday, it was on the stipulation that, you know, if your grades slip because of this, if you can't do your chores, your responsibilities, you prove yourself trustworthy in all these things, here's a TV in your bedroom. You can play video games, you're in charge. Now, the parents still have to have the overall authority that if those things are not being met,
That it gets taken away.
Restrictions. So whose fault is it that the TV is at the foot of the bed, that the kid is doing all these things that a kid should be not allowed to do?
Refusing to go to school. That's one of those moments where I get a little like, oh, come on. You are the parent. Kick your kid out of bed and make them go to school. Who is the authority here?
Now, we're not getting too deep into issues. But there's the whole issue with you can't discipline your child these days, which is where these things run into so many issues.
Yeah.
And because Fortnite gets the blame, because it is a popular game, it is like the most popular game at the moment. Minecraft somehow still has more people playing it on average, but Fortnite is the game at the moment. You can't go anywhere without a teenager throwing a Fortnite dance in your face.
Yes.
But Fortnite is not to blame.
No.
Again, it's not my cup of tea. Maybe we should try it one day. See, maybe it is my cup of tea and I just haven't tried the taste. But Fortnite isn't to blame in this situation.
No.
Proper restrictions and boundaries and trust needs to be built to prove that you can play video games without being addicted. Now, the kid eats 3 meals a day, surely. Is the kid addicted to food? No, because it's probably rationed out correctly. But we can become addicted to anything. If there's no restrictions put on us, we can become addicted to anything.
Absolutely.
So, surely, in this situation, you would not blame Fortnite. But somehow, it gets a prime slot on a current affairs program, and now Fortnite is the evil thing. That annoys me as a video gamer.
The one thing that I took, though, like when that particular segment was then put online, the comments, I'm so thankful to see, were very positive and supporting the game, and then pointing out the hypocrisy of both the reporter and the parents for not doing their role in being fair and seeing it was their shortcomings and you know, not doing their role correctly and casting blame elsewhere. So too often I think people, when they're angry or feel like they can't control a situation, whether it be those tragedies with the massacres and stuff like that, and the victims' families looking for someone else to blame because they're so hurt.
Of course.
Or parents getting frustrated because their kids aren't listening to them because somewhere along the line they've dropped the ball and, you know, they've been overwhelmed with one thing or another, and so they look at an easy target, and that's the game. Blame the game because that's what my kid is addicted to. So rather than look deeper at other issues, I'm going to look at this because I don't want to look at what's really going on, you know, and that's a big attitude, unfortunately, with a lot of people, and it's a repeat theme in a lot of these stories. So...
Now, it would be remiss of us to not focus on the other side of the coin before we finish up with this. Video games have proven to have positive results in people's mental state. I have rather quick reaction times, good hand-eye coordination, and I attribute that to video games. I've been playing those sort of games all my life. And I was always quick-witted, quick, nimble fingers, and I think it's because of that.
You're very good at solving puzzles and thinking logically and outside of the box too.
Puzzle games are one of my favourite things. I will play almost anything if it makes me think. Anything that's too mindless, no thank you. not interested. Now, video games have been proven to assist people with the puzzle-solving aspect of games. Puzzles have helped to prevent and fight mental aging and mental deteriorations that can occur as we age.
Yep.
They can help prevent and sometimes even reverse that. There have been recent initiatives where, for those who are suffering from dementia and cannot leave the establishments that they're in, with the advent of virtual reality technology, to have them be able to visit other places with their friends, in a virtual environment,
Yep.
and safely experience that without being out in the real world.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That is just incredible.
And I'm looking forward to seeing technology continue to move forward in that area of those that, might be comatose or, paralyzed from the neck down, to be able to play games with, similar to, I guess, Sword Art Online, with the deep dive kind of idea of being able to play a game that you're not actually moving or anything, but it's all nerve technology. And I don't know how that would work. It blows my mind that people can think of these things and are working on these things. But the idea of someone being, hospitalized and stuck, to be able to escape into a digital world for fun, even just for a little bit, is such a cool idea. So I think there are so many more positives that certainly outweigh the negatives that come along with this gaming culture. And for me, I know that as far as playing games goes, because I play things like Bejeweled and stuff like that in my spare time.
Oh, 100%. It helps with your reaction times as and also as far as making decisions quicker. Things like Bejeweled.
Yep. But I also have Spidey sense.
Spidey sense.
I can walk into a room and I can spot spiders within the first few moments of being in a room, because there's something that was proven in a study about playing games like Bejeweled, where you're matching things quickly and your eyes are sorting things out, that you can walk into a space and you're more likely to notice tiny details, like a little spider hiding in the corner, as soon as you enter a space. And I've noticed, when I read that, I'm I do that. I can see it and I'll be like, there's a spider there. And it's a little unnerving sometimes because they're in places I can't necessarily get rid of them.
Well, it's not just mental benefits to playing video games. You're always told not to sit too close to the television growing up, as it was always what your parents would accuse you of whenever you were shuffling a little too close to your favourite TV show or video game.
Yep.
Well, scientists recently are discovering that in moderation, games may actually improve one's vision. They help you to distinguish between subtle shades of grey and things like that. And also, when people have lazy eyes, they have discovered to some degree that if the good eye is covered, the lazy eye can actually improve while playing video games.
That's cool.
Sharper movements and significant normalised improvement in the affected eye.
Nice.
How is that for business?
Well, there you go. If you know anyone that's got a lazy eye, cover up their good eye, make them play some video games.
And of course, with all the ailments that age brings, health crises that we have, crises. Oh well, it's one of them. People who have chronic pain, things like that, playing a video game can distract your body from the pain that it's feeling.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's been proven to be a benefit as far as those sort of ailments, because you are focused on an entire separate world. So I know for one, it can be to a detriment, but if you're struggling with a cold, sometimes I play video games and think, oh, I haven't complained about my sore throat in so long. This is wonderful.
Distracts you.
Those who are trying to diet can sometimes forget about their hunger cravings if they, again, in moderation, not just spending 24 hours without eating while playing Duck Hunt or something.
I can't imagine Duck Hunt being that engrossing.
But also, of course, the number one killer in this world that they say people are suffering from is stress. And if you ask anyone who plays video games why they play video games, 9 times out of 10, one of their top reasons will be to reduce stress. And Absolutely. It is scientifically proven to reduce blood pressure, except for those tense moments. And
unless you're playing Spider-Man.
Yeah. But we're talking about resting experience, not the tense moments. If you're watching a movie, you can get accelerated heartbeats watching an exciting scene. But overall, Stress relief is something this world desperately needs.
Mm-hmm. It's good to have a healthy outlet for those sorts of things. Absolutely.
Well, there you go. I think we've defended it enough.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to sound like we're just insane, rambling on about our favourite hobby. But yeah, make sure you do your due diligence in your searching of facts whenever anything comes your way that may seem a little biased.
Absolutely. Lots of fake news out there.
Let's hop to it. Gaming goals! With basically a week left until we leave, what is your last week going to be comprised of?
Oh, right. Probably Odyssey. I want to jump into that. I'm tempted to see how much I can get done before we have to go. I'm worried though, because I'm like, I don't want to forget to pack things because I'll get so lost in this world and then forget to do all the stuff I have to do before we go.
Your video game training will enable you to loot and to find everything you need on site.
Just make sure I don't start climbing Tokyo Tower.
Weapons and equipment OSP. Perfect.
And then jump off the top like they do the leap of faith.
Oh, into a hay bale.
I don't care if there's a hay bale. That would still kill you. Anyway, that's pretty much all that I'm going to have on my agenda, I think. Mm-hmm. I've got so much to get ready for Japan and to finalize with work before I go, so I don't want to try to promise that I'm going to do anything else. You, though, have quite a few plates spinning at the moment.
Yeah, unfortunately, Octopath Traveler is probably not going to come along with us, so it will be on ice for a while. Doom, I will finish. I'm basically allocating this time to wrap up a few loose ends. Mm-hmm. Octopath Traveler withstanding, of course.
Yes.
Doom, I'm halfway through. I can guarantee you that I will beat that before we leave. Mm-hmm. Asterisk, not a guarantee. Life can get busy sometimes.
Yes.
There are also a couple of little projects that I've left available to myself in the occasion that I beat Doom rather quickly. Mm-hmm. There is a visual novel-ish game that I will talk about in a future podcast that I've been playing on the side. Mm-hmm. Didn't want to bring it to the forefront, just in case I didn't get through it. And I wanted to keep it a spooky secret, that's all I'll say. But I do usually play more spooky games in October. So because of the theming of Halloween, and there's always spooky decorations around, so it just fits the theming. If I do have time, I will play a game that I started once. My computer couldn't play it. So I bought it on Xbox and started the second time, and then I played it for one session and then stopped. And so I am determined to get my money's worth. And that game is a short 3-hour experience called Oxenfree.
What about Detroit?
Oh, and Detroit. Of course. That will be... Oh, I don't want to finish it without Natalie.
I know you don't, but I think you're going to have to.
If the occasion rolls around, yes, I will be finishing Detroit Beyond Human this week some point. Sounds great.
Become Human, you mean?
What did I say?
Beyond Human.
It's because of Beyond Two Souls.
Yeah.
I always do it. Here is my formal apology. I hereby feel sincere feelings of sadness every time I have accidentally said Detroit Beyond Human, which still sounds like it could be the title.
Oh dear. Well, if you want to, you can catch up on all the sessions he has streamed on his YouTube channel. The links are on our website at thegaminglovers.com if you want to see his adventures in Detroit thus far. And we will keep you up to date when we are in Japan for all our adventures and stuff. There will still be episodes of the podcast going up weekly, but if you want to keep up to date as far as things that we find in Japan, we'll be posting photos of our adventures, of retro games that we find at Super Potato, things like that, all on our website. You can find the links to our social media pages. That's where all of those updates will be. So all at thegaminglovers.com.
Yeah, check us out on Twitter at Brendo Jem for the Gaming Lovers Twitter. I'm at HyperBrendo, and we are out of time.
We'll catch you next time. Until next episode.
Chowski.
Bye, Nara.
Thanks for listening to the Gaming Lovers Podcast. For more episodes or to watch some live stream gaming, visit thegaminglovers.com.